Welcome to the next episode of Converse with Commerce. India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world and is expected to be one of the top three economic powers over the next 10 to 15 years, backed by its robust democracy and strong partnerships. India's GDP is expected to reach $5 trillion by financial year 25 and achieve upper middle income status on the back of digitization, globalization, favorable demographics, and reform. With an improvement in the economic scenario, there have been investments across various sectors of the economy. Developing countries like India continue to need investments to accelerate their development efforts. Foreign direct investment is one of the important catalysts for economic growth. Foreign direct investment affects the economic growth of a country by stimulating domestic investment, increasing human capital formation, and by facilitating technology transfer in the host country. So, to discuss and better understand this topic of vital importance, we have with us Mr. Navneet Baid. Mr. Baid is a commerce graduate from St. Xavier's College, Kolkata, and has completed his CFA and MBA and has about 15 years of work experience. He currently works in a bank in Mumbai.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Ved. My friend Priyanshi and I are privileged to have you here today. Sir, we would like to understand more about FDI and its importance to a country like India. Could you give us a brief idea about FDI and how countries benefit from FDI?
Sure. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to throw light on FDI. Let me add a disclaimer here. All opinions are personal in nature. Coming back to the topic of FDI, generally speaking, FDI is an investment made by a firm or individual in one country, which is called a home country, into another country, which is called a host country. FDI takes place when an investor establishes foreign business operations or acquires foreign business assets in a foreign company or acquires stake in a foreign company. To give an example, as we saw in recent case of Reliance Jio, where 13 investors have invested around $20 billion. Further, here I would like to bring up the difference between FDI and FPI. FPI is foreign portfolio investment. Foreign portfolio investment refers to investing in the financial assets of a foreign country, such as stocks and bonds. FPI is considered as a short-term investment versus long-term investment in case of FDI. So as we can see, FDI is much more beneficial than FPI. FDI plays an important role when it comes to an economic development of a developing country, especially like India. It helps in bringing in capital where domestic savings are not enough to generate funds. To give you just few examples, a few benefits of FDI, FDI can help the raise output, production and export of a country. It helps in bringing financial resources for economic development. Further, it helps in transfer of new technology, skills, knowledge. It generates employment opportunities for people and bring in more competitiveness environment in the country. It also improves the quality of product and services in different sectors. And the most important, it also increases tax revenues for the government.
Thank you for explaining us the merits of FDI. But at the same time, are there any demerits of FDI?
As with everything, with merits also comes demerits also. So with advantages, there are few disadvantages of FDI also. So the few disadvantages which I would like to highlight here would be: one, domestic companies fear that they may lose ownership of the company. Second, the foreign firm can also alter the economic stability of the country. The country's sovereignty may be at risk as well. Further, the most biggest disadvantages for a country like India is that small companies may be adversely impacted as they may not be able to compete with big and technological advanced companies and may lead to shutdown of these companies as well. Further, if some foreign companies mostly invest in machinery and technological invest house, and rather than the wages of the local people. So the main idea of generating employment with higher benefits may not work well for some cases of FDI. Further, FDI may also adversely affect the exchange rate of a country, whereby it might destabilize the economic stability of a country.
So, as we understand that foreign direct investment is significant for developing economies and emerging markets, where companies need investments and where companies need investments, funding, and expertise to expand their international sales. Can you tell us why foreign direct investment is important for a developing country like India and why are foreign investors willing to invest in India?
That's a very good question. FDI in India has played an important role in development of the Indian economy for last 30 years now. FDI has helped India to achieve a certain degree of financial stability, growth and development. The money has allowed India to focus on certain areas that needed a boost in economic attention and address the various problems that continue to challenge the country. Today, India has become one of the most attractive destinations for foreign direct investments thanks to liberalized norms, easy policy, and subsidized rates also in some cases. Why is an India hot country for an FDI? So if you look at the few things which makes an country more attractive for any FDI investors are all those points are already in India. One, the biggest and the most important point is the size of the market. We have favorable demographics in India. India has more than 50% of its population below the age of 25 and 65% below the age of 35. Thereby, it's a big market for any company or any country for that matter. Further, impressive mobile and internet penetration has made sure that this market can be accessible for companies which are investing in India. Last but not the least, the 2 points which have been helping in India for last few years have been the political stability and lower tax rates, which again makes any company to invest in India.
Okay. So, as we understand that over the years post liberalization, there has been a steady growth of FDI flows into India. As per you, what are the various government actions, events, or regulations which have had bearing on FDI flows in India?
Investment climate in India has improved tremendously since 1991, when government opened up the economy and eased FDI reforms. Many sectors have opened up for foreign investment, partially or wholly since economic liberalization of the country. The government of India provides tax and non-tax incentives in specific sectors and regions. Further, to facilitate this, it has created incentives for manufacturing to set up SEZ, which is Special Economic Zone, NIMZ, which is National Investment and Manufacturing Zone, and EOU, which is Export Oriented Unit. So all these measures have helped India to become a better place for investment in terms of FDI and bringing more FDI flows in India.
So, as we see that over the years, there has been a simultaneous and steady growth of FDI into India. So, can we get some data points on the amount of FDI flows, the industries which attracted FDI, and the countries which provided us with the maximum FDI flows?
So if you look at data point from 2000 to 2019, overall the FDI inflows were around $642 billion. FDI equity inflows in India stood last year, which was 2019-20, around $50 billion. Data for 2019-20 also indicate that service sector attracted the highest FDI equity inflow, followed by computer, software and hardware, and also telecom sector. Last year, India received the maximum equity FDI inflows from Singapore, followed by Mauritius, Netherlands, USA and Japan. Here, one point I would like to highlight is there are FDI equity flows coming from country also depends on what kind of a tax treaty India has with those countries. So a country which will have a favorable tax treaty with India, most of the flows would also come from that country. So the origin location can be a different country, but the investor from the money which comes are from countries like Singapore and Mauritius most because of the favorable tax treaty which we have.
Great. But we know that India is a lucrative place for FDI flows in. So, as we know that India is a lucrative place for FDI, but there are certainly some major challenges and problems which countries like India have to face to attract FDI flows. Can we get some clarity on the same?
Yes, as you mentioned correctly, India is definitely a lucrative place for FDI, especially in terms of market size. However, there are certain challenges and areas of improvement. The some of the major reasons where we are not able to achieve the amount of FDI we should have achieved. The first and foremost which comes to mind and which is very evident is lack of adequate infrastructure. If you look at our infrastructure compared to what China have, we are lagging quite behind of them. Government have been taking initiative for last 4 or 5 years to improve those infrastructure, but the pace and the speed is still not up to the desirable limit. Further, other things which are like stringent labor laws, corruption, lack of decision authority within the state governments, and further, sometimes indecisive government and political instability are also become challenges for country like India. And these are when really a detriment for an FDI investor to invest in a country like India.
Thank you for explaining that to us, Mr. Ved. Now we understand that foreign direct investment by an individual or a company based outside the country is regulated by government authorities. Can you briefly elaborate on the various FDI routes in India?
Sure. So there are two routes through which FDI flows come to India. One is an automatic route, the other one is a government route. In the automatic route, the foreign entity does not require prior approval of government or the RBI. For example, medical devices or thermal power, which have an FDI up to 100%, and there need not be a specific government approval for this one. The other route, which is a government route, in this route, under this route, the foreign entity should compulsorily take an approval of the government before investing. For example, broadcasting content services, banking and public sector services, and retail sector as well. So as we can see from above, there have been cases where it's dependent on which sector where the government feels that there should be an automatic route or government route. Further, the amount of rate which entity can invest in India depends on the sector. So some sectors have automatic route up to 100%, some sector have an automatic route up to 49% or 51 or 20%. So if for an example, if there's 100% investment which can be allowed, what it means is the entire funds of the business can come from the foreign direct investment.
Okay.
So, while explaining government routes, you mentioned that the foreign entity needs approval from the government. So, can you explain the procedure which the foreign entity should follow to take approval from the government?
Yes, of course. The foreign entity should first file an application through FIPB, which is FIFP, which is Foreign Investment Facilitation Portal, which facilitates single window clearance. This application is then forwarded to respective ministry or department, which then approves or rejects the application after consultation with DPIIT, which is Department for Promotion of Industrial and Internal Trade. By having this single window clearance, what it means is an investor need not go to different departments by themselves. They only apply through one single channel, and they can eventually get yes or no depending on whether these ministry or departments are okay with this.
So, we understand that in India, FDI has been concentrated towards a few sectors. So, which are the major sectors recipient of FDI flows in India?
As we discussed previously, the sector which have received most FDI flows are generally more towards services. So if you broadly look at the investment which have come across last few years, they can be categorized in terms of sectors like chemical, services, computer software hardware, telecom, automobile industry, power and pharmaceuticals. Major MNCs under FDI are Apple, Google, Vodafone, Ford Motors, Samsung, LG, Reebok, and Skoda Motors. If we look at state-wise specification, FDI has been majorly concentrated in Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Delhi, and Karnataka.
Certainly, Mr. Baird. While the government allows 100% FDI to some sectors like the thermal power sector, we also understand that the government restricts a few sectors where FDI is not permissible. Can we get some clarity on the same?
Yes, as we discussed previously, government takes a call which sector they want to open up and which sector they do not. The reason for them is somewhere it's sometimes tied up to how does government sees if an FDI will bring in benefit to the country overall, or it can be a damaging to a country also. Further, it can also look from the perspective of economic and country stability. So the few sectors which have been prohibited are agriculture or plantation activities, although there are some exceptions to that, like horticulture, fisheries, tea plantation, etc. Then atomic energy generation, lotteries, investment in chit funds, any gambling or betting in business, and lastly, the cigar or the cigarette or any tobacco related industries. So these are the few sectors where FDI is not permitted and where any foreign investor cannot invest here.
Thank you for explaining us the various routes and sectors of FDI flows. But now, if we could sorry. Thank you for explaining us the various routes and sectors. Now, if we could know a little more about the regulatory regime encompassing FDI in India.
India's regulatory regime for FDI has been gradually liberalized since 1991. And as a result of this regime, is no longer particularly restrictive. Let's go back to history here. Before 1991, all FDI proposals were considered on case-to-case basis and FDI was capped at 40% of total equity investment. In 1991, the policy was amended under PV Narasimha government to allow automatic approval up to 51% ownership in 34 sectors. The list was further expanded to cover 111 sectors in 1997. In 2000, the policy was altered to one using a negative list approach. Since then, 100% FDI is permitted in most sectors via the automatic route, with the requirement that RBI have to be notified within 30 days. In India, there are few government organizations which governs FDI routes. One is FIPB, which is the major one, where the Foreign Investment Promotion Board. Then FIPC, which is Foreign Investment Promotion Council. Then FIIA, which is Foreign Investment Implementation Authority. And then SIA, which is Secretariat for Industrial Assistance. Further, in my opinion, I would like to add here is India perhaps need a single regulatory body, which is in lines of United States they have.
Mr. Baer, given the current pandemic situation, the entire world is going through unprecedented times, not only from the healthcare perspective, but also on the overall global economy front. What impact, according to you, would COVID-19 have on the FDI regime, particularly with respect to India?
That's a very pertinent question. As COVID-19 continues to spread, regulators worldwide are expanding the scope of their FDI screening mechanisms to include healthcare, critical infrastructure, and technology to protect their economic and national interest. Economic countries have taken many protective positions and are restricting foreign investment, especially in critical industries. The recent hydrochloroquine index incident underscores the importance of India retaining control over indigenous critical infrastructure and technology. Given that pandemic has weakened, further may weaken, companies in technology, infrastructure, and other unregulated sectors, the government may considering reviewing FDI regulations to ensure that appropriate checks are in place in relation to acquisition of such companies. To give you an recent example in terms of what government has done, In attempt to curb opportunistic takeovers or acquisition of Indian companies made vulnerable due to business disruption, the Indian government has now narrowed down the scope of eligible investors. It has stated that country which share a land border with India will now be permitted to invest under approval route only, not through automatic route, which means neighboring countries like China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka will now need specific approval from government and they will not be allowed to invest through automatic. So these are kind of measures which countries like India have taken, and also these measures can be also seen in European countries as well.
One last question, Mr. Ved. According to you, will there be a significant long-term impact on the FDI flows to India due to COVID-19?
Yes, so due to COVID-19 crisis, global FDI inflows are forecast to nosedive by up to 40% towards the end of this year. However, India's economy could prove the most resilient, specifically in South Asia, and its large market will continue to attract market-seeking investment to the country, even as we expect a dramatic fall in FDI. FDI to India has been a long-term growth trend. It's been a bit slower, but however, it has been positive. Economic growth in the post-pandemic period and India's large market will hopefully continue to attract market-seeking investment in the countries. Further, the way India is opening up, a rebound in 2021 or 2022 with FDI reverting to pre-pandemic trend looks possible, though the outlook is highly uncertain.
Indeed, the world market for such investments is highly competitive, and developing countries in particular continue to seek such investments to accelerate their development efforts. Recognizing that FDI can contribute to economic development, all governments want to attract it. While FDI represents investment in production facilities, its significance for developing countries is much greater. Not only can FDI add to investable resources and capital formation, but perhaps more important, it is also a means of transferring production technologies, skills, innovative capacity, and organizational and managerial practices between locations, as well as accessing international marketing networks. Given the importance of FDI on India's economic development, we all hope things stabilize in a short while and we see FDI flows rebound to the pre-COVID levels. Thank you for your valuable insights on the topic, Mr. Beck. Before we conclude, we would like you to express your views on today's session.
I must say thank you for such an interesting conversation. I was really surprised with the inquisitive and relevant questions. Further, I must say that learning topics like this at an such early age will help you boost your business knowledge. Hope you guys enjoyed as much I did. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you, Mr. Ved. The session has been very educating. I would like to thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule to share your deep knowledge on FDI with us. It has truly been an enriching and knowledgeable experience for all of us. I would also like to thank all the team members and our parents who have helped us during the research, as well as our Director Principal, Mrs. Amnita Bir, and our teacher, Manisha Ma'am, for giving us this opportunity to conduct this interview with Mr. Baird on the topic Foreign Direct Investment in India. Last but not the least, I would once again like to express some sincere gratitude towards all of you for making this event a success.
Thank you all. Please stay tuned for the next episode of Converse with Com.